The big questions, viewer, that all of you are asking, and these are questions that I'm asking as well, we're going to put them to a very well-known observer and commentator who's been looking at this issue very, very closely for the last 8 days. But first, I want to read out those questions. Number one, relations appear on the surface to be worsening between India and Canada. But what is next? Things are escalating, but what is that next step? There's suspense. Question number one. Question number two, is the India-Canada back channel working? Are there diplomats, off camera, beyond social media and press conferences? Are they talking to each other, trying to cool things down and normalize relations? Number three, does India gain or lose from this flashpoint? There are many different perspectives on this because there are many different angles, but it's a simple question to ask. Are we gaining or are we losing in the wake of what's happening between India and Canada? Number four, has India's posture in some ways surprised the West? India's aggressive posture, cancelling visas, the things that Dr. Jaishankar said today in New York City, has it taken the West by surprise? And number five, will this affect India's relations with others, including countries like the United States, the UK, Australia, and other close diplomatic partners of the country? Because these are countries that also have, remember, close ties with Canada. Joining me live now is Abhijit Iyer Mitra. He's one of India's most well-regarded observers and commentators on international affairs, and certainly one of my favorites. He's also senior research fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies. He's been looking very, very closely at every little thing that's been emerging from this India-Canada fracas. Abhijit, welcome. It's day 8 since Prime Minister Trudeau made these allegations, and we've been seeing how this story has taken many, many different twists and turns. The latest, of course, has been Dr. Jaishankar. I just read out those 5 questions. I'm going to ask you those questions, Abhijit, one by one, and I want your perspective on them. Number one, Abhijit, relations appear to be worsening between the two countries. If you look at what the External Affairs Minister said in New York today, it didn't seem like things are cooling down. But the real question is, what next? How would you answer that, Abhijit?
Look, Shiv, unfortunately, this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Because you have sources in government, I have sources in government. I don't know what your sources are telling you, but mine are just not ready to back down. If anything, they are going to go after more properties. And I think today itself, there's been a raid, an NIA raid against about 50 Punjab-based organized criminals. This is going to get a lot worse. The first list of 19 OCI cancellations was just the beginning. This is going to slowly. They don't want a single innocent person to suffer, but they are tracing every single video of protests, etc., to go higher up and higher up and higher up. Second, remember, Arindam Bagchi in his press conference had demanded parity of staff. You haven't seen anything happen out here. We're waiting for something big to come out from the Canadian side to enact that parity. Because if Canada refuses to withdraw staff, we will force that parity on them. The third thing, which I know for a fact that is being discussed, is the shutting down of the Chandigarh consulate. Now, remember, we have one High Commission and 2 embassies out there. They have one High Commission and 3 consulates out.
Consulates,
here. That is not parity. That is 1 plus 2 equals 1 plus 3 doesn't work. And Chandigarh, if we shut it down, it will be fabulously popular with Canadian diplomats who view it as a punishment posting. They don't want to go to Chandigarh. So, it's kind of win-win. But there's lots more steps. I'm not going to get into the details, but there's so much more that's being considered. I have never seen a government this resolute. I think the last time I saw this was when the entire Devyani Khobragade incident happened.
Very, very interesting. Second question. Okay, so you're saying there are many more things that you're not mentioning. We won't go into those, but it just shows that there is not only resolution, but there's also a plan, a calibrated plan on how to take things depending on how Canada responds. Question number 2, Abhijit. Is the India-Canada back channel working? We can't see the back channel, but obviously, both the countries have relations, they have diplomatic machineries. Is there a back channel at work to cool things down?
Unfortunately not. And this is the problem. You see, the whole issue has been that Canada's bureaucracy, like, in America, you generally find Pentagon is more Republican-leaning and state is more Democrat-leaning.
Right.
In Canada, the bureaucracy is institutionally left. They are institutionally pro-liberal, pro the Liberal Party and pro-Trudeau. And so what's happening is there's this sort of ideological bias and condescension coming into every single non-ministerial, non-political meeting from what I'm hearing. It's getting worse. There is no real conversation happening at any level. Technically, intelligence agencies talk to each other even when things are very bad. Even that is not happening. And the main reason for it is this sort of idée fixe. They want us to act, but they refuse to give us intelligence on what. I mean, if I say Shivarur, I'm going to condemn you for not acting on my concerns. You'll keep asking me for the rest of the program, what are your concerns, but I'm not telling you my concerns. What are you meant to do? I mean,
Very true.
How am I meant to act on this?
And it's been 8 days and not a single thing has been shared. Dr. Jaishankar also re-upped that point. Yeah.
And note, again, what they keep leaking out is, the intel exists. It's really damning. And, all these Western security experts just go completely gaga over it. But nobody is actually talking about the intel. I wonder if you saw the Globe and Mail's piece, the interview with Jagmeet Singh today. Yeah. He says, I saw the intel. It's very credible. And then he says, I didn't see anything specific.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious.
I mean, how do you reconcile the two?
I hear you, and that's the reason. That's actually the reason I began my show, by quoting some of these amazing, amazing experts. Which brings me to my third question, Abhijit, because the conversation is happening in public. It's a hyper-connected world where this very visceral sort of exchange is happening between India and Canada. The question I want to ask you is, because you also look at sentiment, you also look at optics and perception, does India gain or lose from this fracas with Canada? Simple question.
There's literally no downside to this, Shiv. I've worked out all the angles. I mean, I'm human, so I'm fallible.
I knew you would.
Sure, some of the audience can find an angle. But look, as I see it, had India backed down, this would have literally been a green light to communities like the Sikh community in Italy that Francesca spoke about, the Sikh community and let's not call it the Sikh community, let's call it Khalistanis, because 99% of the Sikhs in both UK, Italy and Canada are all hostages to these extremist fringe elements who threaten them every single day. And, a culturally sensitive multicultural police just throws them to the wolves claiming cultural relativity. So what's been happening is it would have encouraged these organized crime networks to spread their tentacles, consolidate their control over the community and things like that, number one. Yeah. Number two, it has finally brought, again, in an internet age, when Kanishka happened, it wasn't the internet age. Right. In an internet age, it has again raised the specter of what organized crime, terrorism, etc. can do in Canada. Number three, if you notice, the murder of Sukhdev Singh, which happened 2-3 days after this entire thing blew up, nobody wants to talk about it. Why is that?
Yeah, true.
Why is that? I mean, I never understand this, because do we know that it's a clearly a gangland killing?
Yeah.
I think we should do a lot more to keep highlighting that. Number four, what's happening is all the rats are coming out of the wood. You've seen people like Tim Uppal in the Conservative Party, who calls Nijar Bhai, Nijar, etc., refusing to even mention that this man is a wanted terrorist or a criminal or anything of that sort. So, it's very good that these people are exposing themselves, because then it makes our OCI and visa denial program much more robust.
And hopefully those actions are coming soon. I'm going to club my last two questions for you, Abhijit, and you can work that in. Which is, has India's posture, this resoluteness that you were talking about, has it surprised the West? And will this affect India's relations, with countries like the United States and the UK?
The US and UK, absolutely not. If the US and UK don't want to touch this with a barge pole. Rishi Sunak's spokesperson was asked, he replied saying, the talks for a trade deal are on. I mean, how do you connect the two together? But he clearly didn't want to talk about it. Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan have said certain things. But notice they have refused to condemn India.
Yeah.
It is the condemnation that matters. This is like saying, oh, it's very serious. For example, if your dog, decides to threaten me and bite me, or threaten to bite me, really, I come to you and say, Shiv, you should take this very seriously. And what you say is, Abhijit, I take your concerns very seriously. And then you go talk to your dog, Fluffy, and say, Fluffy, you're a very bad boy. I expect better behavior from you. Is that a condemnation, really? Our relations with the US are going nowhere. I think in the general scheme of things, India is much more important than Canada. I think the problem with Canada has been they still think they're at Pierre Trudeau's time where we were going around with a beggar bowl and they were a big, strong, powerful country giving us atoms for peace nuclear reactors. And today they are nobody.
The realization of a changed India, without all the sentimentalism attached to it, has been perhaps one of the biggest learnings from the last 8 days. And I think it's something that is still dawning on all these experts that we're talking about. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about it a lot more, but that's all the time we have for on this particular segment. Abhijit, I always appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to me and taking my questions here on 5 Live. Look forward to having you back again very, very soon. That was Abhijit Iyer, Mitra.